I've been researching this because I power lift and of course it's something that I enjoy a lot and I want to do it well for as long as possible. And one of the things that I've actually learned about is that sort of the decline in testosterone that we see as men, past a certain age, 30, 40 or 50, it's actually mostly activity related. So it's not that you go over 30 and then your hormones decline. It's that you go over 30 and then you start drinking more, eating more, exercising less.
Yeah.
But if you keep the stimuli sort of active, and especially with lifting weights, you can keep you see it in bodybuilding and even natural bodybuilders and powerlifters, they usually end up peaking 40s or mid 40s even, so quite late, and it's because they've just been doing it for longer.
Yeah.
But you see people still growing and getting huge and really strong at, over 40.
Yeah, things are different now because people know that. You know what I mean? I think maybe there's more free time for the average person these days too, so you have time to kind of think about that. But
more awareness also, I guess.
Yeah, more awareness, because really it doesn't take that long. You could work out, you work out hard, a half hour you can get a lot done. And
30, 45 minutes if you go hard, that's you can't even do much more than that.
It's true.
You burn out.
If you're really working out hard, half hour can do just fine, So that's kind of like that for I talk to people that practice bass too, switching to that mode. People will talk about, I'm playing I only have time to practice 2 hours a day. I'm like, that's enough. If you're it's the quality, not quantity in most cases, with working out, it's the intensity, not the length a lot of the time, unless you're an endurance athlete, of course. If you're doing a marathon, there's no way to do that in a half hour. You have to do the longer stuff. But for strength training, you can get a ton done in a hurry. And I think for something mental, like playing bass or learning a language or something like that, you can get a lot done in a half hour too. Bass, I like to have it be at least an hour when I practice, and have it be a quality hour, not just, sitting around watching TV and playing is okay too. It's a muscle memory thing, but that's not really practicing. The hard practicing is where you're learning something new, trying to commit it to memory, learning a new song, learning, working through new scales or chords or something like that.
Actually, I think that's an interesting subject, and I'm sure that a lot of people listening will be very interested in that. So how do you structure your practice? Do you have a given plan? Did you prepare the day before maybe? Or what's a practice routine like for you?
What it has ended up being lately is just learning the new material I have to work on. And so I'll structure it that way. Okay, if I have a new song, first just start out just getting ready, just getting warmed up, of course, for a few minutes and noodling around a little, just having fun, playing the easy stuff that's really just second nature to me. But then once you have to start learning the song, that's the hard part. And I'll take it little by little and just learn a section. If I have something really hard that I can't quite play yet, maybe it's like a 16-note phrase. And it's like, oh my God, I can't do all 16 of those right now. It's too hard and it's this weird timing or something. Do 4. I'll loop those 4 notes, play them half speed. Do. 1, 2, 3, or whatever. That was 5 notes. But whatever. I'll just loop that little thing again and again. Okay, now I got it. All right, on to the next 4 notes. I'll learn those. I'll learn it maybe, 4 notes, 4 notes, 4 notes, something like that. Then start tying them together. Okay, let's do all 8 of them now. And then eventually, once you've done everything slow, compartmentalized it that way and learned every little section, you can tie them all together. And that even works if it's not something that hard to play, but just something hard to memorize. Just learn it little by little. People hear a song that has maybe 30 parts in it, and they think, oh my God, how could you remember that? It's like, well, you play your band's set, right? And your band's set, probably, even if you have simple songs that only have 3 or 4 parts, but if you're playing 10 of those songs, then you've done the same thing, just over a longer period of time. So you can remember that much.
That's it's a really interesting way to look at it actually, and very interesting. So it's I apply to different things, but I also believe in sort of deconstructing and you might have a really complex problem to solve. And usually the way you tackle something big is, start by little chunks at a time and just focus on. Yep. And I think this could be with anything that requires like long-term thinking and patience and perseverance. Is focus on the next day or focus on the next 2 hours. Like if you start thinking, oh man, it might be a year until this happens. Like you can get discouraged very easily. So like divide things in little chunks and focus on that little chunk first, and then once that's good, like you're okay with that, move on to the next one. That's very, very interesting. Last time we met, which might have been a couple of years ago, we were talking about jiu-jitsu. I remember that you told me that you got up to blue belt, right? Yeah,
I did. I mean, my training was fragmented because I was on tour so much, and there was really no opportunity to practice on tour. No one else in the band was doing that, so. But that was fun. Yeah, I did that between 1999 and 2004. I was really excited about that, and I mean, I still think it's a great sport. I just haven't gotten back into it. I've kind of focused on other things, lower impact stuff, just running and riding my bike, things like that. But yeah, that's a fun sport, and that's something too where you learn a little by little, in my opinion. You learn a move. Get that one move down and you can start tying them together, and you see the guys that are really good at jiu-jitsu, they're tying it together without thinking about it anymore, like a good improviser. We me and a friend of mine that he's a drummer, but he also did jiu-jitsu, my friend Royce, he and I talked about that, how these guys that are really good at jiu-jitsu probably could have been really good at playing music too.
Sure, and actually that's when you told me that the way you tackle learning a complex part or a complex song, it reminded me a lot of how you do jiu-jitsu, because it's like you don't learn the move on the first try. You should learn first positioning, setup, and you drill that to death until and then you move on to the next, and that's how you tie things together. It was for me, the interesting thing is how these learning patterns and techniques are quite transferable and universal. Like if you learn how to get good at one thing, you probably have, even if you're not fully aware of how you did it, instinctively you probably can sort of take a similar approach and pick on things or pick things up faster and easier.
Yeah, I think same thing, learning a language or something, you're going to learn little bits first before you're having a conversation. So improvising music really well, it's eventually should be easy like a conversation, and it is for the guys who are really good at it. Improvising moves in jiu-jitsu, doing a good job with that, same thing. It's probably just how the brain works, and you end up seeing something very complex on the outside. Like when you see someone performing something that's very complex and requires a whole lot of different moves, it can be overwhelming if you don't know anything about that art. But not to take away from how much work it is to learn that, but still I think the brain's probably meant to learn things that way in small chunks, and then you put it all together and it's like, whoa, and it's still hard, but it's not quite as hard as you would think to the person who's doing it. The person who's doing it, it's if you're able to play something really complex, it's no longer complex to you. You know what I mean? Sure. It's just another normal thing that you're doing. You've just put in the time.
That sort of perceived complexity. That's a very interesting thing, because probably one of the most complex things that most humans will ever can master is a language.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about hundreds or thousands of words with very specific syntax, and 99.99% of people can speak well enough that you can get your ideas across.
Yeah.
And that's something that we just learn instinctively. And after learning a language, it's kind of is music more complicated? Of course, you have the whole motor skills and everything, but mentally at least, it's not as complicated as a language, or not more complicated than a language.
I think you're right. Now that you mention it, it's a good way to think about it. Maybe the fact that humans have a built-in instinct to learn languages would mean that these other things are going to come naturally to us too, that seem complicated, and especially if someone learns when they're young. I wish that I had really started learning music from when I was 3 years old or something like that. And you can see some of the really just unbelievable virtuosos you find out their history, and they started learning when they were 3. And it's the same thing when you meet a person who's bilingual and has 0 accent in either language. It's usually because they learned from childhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
like for example, Victor Wooden. I think there's pictures of him with the bass at age 5 or 6. And it's like, yeah, no wonder he's like,
so
good,
that's complete fluency.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. That's very interesting. So, tell us about more. Of course, you're now touring with Cannibal Corpse and doing this European leg. How's everything going there?
It's been great so far. It's what we're doing this summer is trying to do a lot of festivals, and then we're trying to find shows that we can play that don't interfere with those festivals during the week. Because it would be pretty expensive to come over here and
just play the weekends.
Just play the weekends or fly home between festivals, things like that. We're not going to do that. So we had our booking agency look around for opportunities in areas that we weren't doing festivals. Like we're not doing a festival in Finland, so they were able to arrange these 4 shows up here for us. And same thing for Poland. We're not doing any festivals there, so we're going to be doing 5 shows in Poland coming right up after this. We're playing the Baltics, not Lithuania, but Latvia and Estonia we're going to get to.
Nice.
So actually Estonia is tomorrow. So
I was just there last week actually. In Estonia for a week. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I always look forward to playing down there. So it's going to be a really good tour. And then mixed in with these club dates are the big festivals. And it's kind of nice because when you fly in to do a festival, maybe you haven't played a show in a while. If you're just flying in for the one show and then flying home, it might be the first show you've done in a month or something. And that's not a fun situation for a band. I don't think any band out there likes to pop in and play in front of 50,000 people without having had some club dates before.
Sure, yeah.
So we're a well-oiled machine at this point. So when we play Wacken on August 3rd, it'll be smooth. We're already in the routine. It'll be very smooth, and that's a good one to have go smoothly for you because there's sometimes 100,000 people at that.
That's insane. Yeah,
it's a lot.
Actually, this is something that every time I meet someone who's achieved success at something, it's very interesting because when you play, Wacken in a couple of weeks or so, it's not your first festival. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. But is there a part of you that when you go on stage and you see, 50, 100,000 people, say, like, what the fuck? Like, although it's like there's things that never get old in a way.
Yeah. You can't. At least me, I'm never going to get used to having 100,000 people watching us play. And even, not all 100,000 are watching, but surely tens of thousands at any given time are watching any of the bands on the main stage. You never get used to that. I'm used to playing clubs. It fits like a glove. It's just completely natural to play in clubs. It's really fun. The festivals are fun too, but it's different. We're maybe the really big bands like Metallica or something. For them, playing in front of tens of thousands of people a night is probably pretty normal at this point. But for us, it's still it's an event for sure.
Yeah, it's Did you imagine that when you bought your first bass, you're gonna think, man, in 20, 30 years I'll be playing in front of 50,000 people?
No, I don't think anybody could. Really, you hope that's going to happen, but you can't imagine it. It's incredible.
I don't know. I mean, we're sort of in the music industry, both of us, but we're doing very different things. And in a way, when people ask me, did you ever imagine that you'd be where you are now? In a way, it's like the answer is always yes, because of course, like that's why I started doing these things. That's why I worked so hard. In your case, that's why you practiced so much and got so good at it. It's because of course you dream of playing in front of tens of thousands of people. So it's this weird mix, like, yeah, sure, I always thought about it continuously, but at the same time, at least for me, it's like, still hard to believe that it fucking worked.
Yeah, no, sure
it worked out, yeah. It's like, wow, like, it's like it's same for you, like out of all the, hundreds of thousands, millions of people who pick up an instrument, how many can say that, yeah, I get to play in front of 10,000 of people, on a yearly basis? It's minuscule, like a very minuscule percentage.
It's such a, a lucky thing. You can, talent and hard work and everything, of course, is part of it, but luck is such a crucial component to success, timing and everything. And we've had our timing right in a few key instances, to where, yeah, you just don't know how things would have turned out if some of these opportunities hadn't cropped up. It might just never have happened. And I know a bunch of musicians that are really talented that never quite made it to where we did, and then some other musicians obviously have gone way beyond what we've done too. So it's just so hard to say. There's no predicting it. Yeah. People ask the question a lot of me, like, oh, what should I do to be successful? And it's hard to answer because who knows? But I tell them one thing for sure is just have fun and try to be easy to work with. Like try to make yourself easy to work with, and you'll always be in demand as a musician anyway, and probably as a band in general too. Like the bands that bigger bands like to tour with are the ones that are easy to work with. Sure. They get their stuff on and off stage in a hurry, whatever. So, but most importantly, just have fun and do it for the music, and then hopefully things fall into place. Just don't count on it because who knows? I never would have counted on it happening. Yeah. You just have to do the best you can, and then hopefully things line up for you.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I think for people that are sort of maybe aspiring to be where you are, it's very easy to think that there is something that you figured out, like you've cracked the code or figured out the formula, and you're keeping it but there's a lot of timing, of a lot of hard work, and I guess like if you had to do it all over again, it's not like you'd have this like checklist of first I do this. You'd probably instinctively do the similar things, but even then there would be no guarantee that things would turn out exactly the same way if you had to start from scratch.
I wouldn't. That's another common interview question. People say, if you could change something, would you? And it's like, well, of course we've made mistakes, and everybody makes mistakes in their life. But if you change something, would it lead you down some different path, and then things don't turn out as well? So we're quite happy with how things have turned out, so we wouldn't change a thing.
I think that makes a lot of sense because you might have changed a little thing and who knows?
Yeah, who knows what would happen?
It's impossible to predict. Actually, that's what would you say to the next Alex Webster, right? Like the next sort of archetypical successful metal bass player that right now might be listening. Maybe he's starting out, 15, 20 years old. If there would be like one piece of advice that you would have liked to have when you started, without trying to change anything, but what would it be?
Well, beyond the stuff I already said, like make yourself easy to work with and so forth, practice hard. I would also say, don't be hard on yourself too. Don't be, practice hard, but don't overdo it. Just on a technical point of things, maybe you probably don't need to play quite as hard as you think for a metal bass player. You can actually
even like hard, like physically.
Yeah, like actually physically hard. I think a lot of guys, and I'm guilty of this too. Just and especially in my earlier days, you're like just really digging into the point where it's actually a point of you're almost choking the note sometimes, and then you can play faster if you're a little bit lighter and still get a good strong attack.
Sure.
So. But don't be too hard on yourself either. People really want to go, like full on Whiplash, like that movie, and I feel like that's a recipe for like beating yourself up and feeling like a failure. I think that you should work hard and everything, but have fun. Yeah, having fun is crucial to making good music. It should be something you really enjoy. And if you enjoy the hard work of practicing hard, then by all means. But don't beat yourself up if you, aren't progressing as fast or have a mistake in a performance or something like that. Just have fun up there.
That's actually really good advice. I think especially a lot of people who get good at things are already pretty hardworking, and a big part of that, ironically, is that you are pretty hard on yourself. Like the people who are the most self-critical are probably the people who shouldn't really be that self-critical because chances are they're already working pretty hard and doing as much as they can to improve. That's really actually deep advice. Do you ever take lessons?
I did, yeah. First guy I took lessons from was a friend a couple years older than me named Mike Hudson, and he was the jazz bass player in the school's band that I went to in my high school. And he gave me lessons and really got me started well. So I always tip my hat to him. And then I had a few other teachers, some good guys in the Buffalo area. I never took lessons for a very long period of time. It was always like for a few months, and then I would stop taking lessons and just
do your thing.
Yeah, just be self-taught. Like I like to get magazines and read the bass lessons that magazines had in them. Bass player for sure, but even before that, there was guitar for the practicing musician. Had I think it was them. They would have bass lines in there sometimes, and I would try to learn those. I think lessons are good. There's nothing quite like having someone to ask. You can figure out so much by yourself, but having someone to ask is really helpful, even in this day and age when there's so much stuff available on YouTube.
I think that nowadays it's as good as it's ever been, and you see it now. Like now you see kids who are 10, 12 years old and are like, if you would have been 30 to 20 years ago, you would have been Emway or like these mega rock stars and known for their technical prowess, and now it's a cliche now. It's like the 15-year-old kid playing his bedroom or head bedroom. That's a monster.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about learning things so quickly when you're young. The information's available now. Like I actually took guitar lessons when I was 6 for just a few months.
All right.
And I lost interest. Yeah, acoustic guitar. And I was too young. I lost interest. And what they were trying to teach me, the only teacher we could find was teaching me folk songs. And even then I wasn't interested in playing that kind of music. I wanted to play rock at that age. I wanted to play some kind of rock music. And they weren't teaching that. So I wasn't motivated and I quit. And I didn't pick up bass again until I was 14, I think. Or like I didn't try playing an instrument again. And then it was bass guitar when I was 14. So
why the change, if you don't mind me asking, like from guitar to, because I think you always grew up going to be the guitarist, right? Like Eddie Van Halen and and
well, I think I've always had modest goals, and again, talking about seeing something and seeing it as being so complicated. If you're looking at Van Halen, you're looking at AC/DC. These are bands that
iconic
we all
guitarists.
listen to. I remember thinking, well, I want to play in a band, and but what Eddie Van Halen's doing, when am I ever going to be able to do that? Probably never, And then I looked at what the bass player's doing. It's still really cool. I loved how it sounded, but it also seemed like something I could actually do. And so at first it just seemed like, this is something I could do. It seemed almost impossible to do what lead guitar players were doing to someone who couldn't play at all. Really.
Yeah.
So, and then my friend, I had a friend who played bass and was willing to give me lessons for, I think it was like $5 an hour or something like that. This is 1984 we're talking, so that was...
Well, $5 back then was money. Yeah.
Still pretty good, yeah. That was just a little bit above minimum wage or whatever at the time, but like I loved how the bass sounded anyway, and but it just seemed like something that I could actually do, and I wanted to play with people, and I didn't want to have to wait until I could play like,
or these guys,
somebody that good. It just seemed impossible. I mean, and I loved how the bass sounded anyway. So it really was perfect. Like by the time I was 14, for some reason, I just really gravitated towards the bass. And so I started taking the lessons and I loved it. And then I remember I think it's maybe the first year that I started playing bass, I also got to see Yes live. Oh. So I got to see Chris Squire, and then I got to see Geddy Lee. When I look back at it, I got to see all these amazing bass players the first couple years that I played bass, and it had to have left some kind of an impact because I saw Yes, I saw Rush, all these concerts came through Buffalo.
Which is actually ironic that sort of you were looking at Eddie and thought, I could never do that, and then Geddy Lee is just as impressive. Not, I mean, like what Geddy Lee does, it's something that, it's mind-blowing.
And again, I was like, well, that's beyond me too, because it was my first year of playing. I thought, I'll probably never be able to do that either, but whatever. I really did love it. And then the following year, Iron Maiden played, and on that particular night, their guest in Buffalo was Tallis. So I got to see Billy Sheehan and Steve Harris the same night, again within a year or so of having started playing bass. So
you got to see like 4 of the greatest bass players of all time in rock history.
What a great opportunity, and I'll never forget seeing Steve Harris and Billy Sheehan on one night, and Billy did take a solo, even though it was an opening gig, and I was like, well, that is unbelievable. I'd never, that's, even to this day, I can't think of a rock bass player who can play that way,
I think bass players who can shred that hard, I probably know, like, especially metal, like a couple, like in jazz you have, Hadron Farad and these guys who can also play like anything.
Yes.
But it's a different style and it's a completely different vibe and being jazz. But yeah, I think in rock there's there's a Japanese friend of mine, Ayumu, he's one of our artists. He plays with a pick though, but he's also like insanely fast. But yeah, like, I mean, Billy was doing that like what, in the 70s, in the 80s at least for sure. Yeah, Billy was, for me growing up, Billy was definitely one of my heroes. Steve Harris and Billy Sheehan were probably...
Yeah, same for me. So like I said, seeing them early in my career, it kind of put something in the back of my head, like, maybe someday I'll play some stuff like that.
You got more ambitious when you saw them.
I'm like, I'll start out with the more meat and potatoes stuff, but if I can get there, I'd like to.
And here you are. That's incredible because I think, like, now you are the guy for many bass players now. I mean, not so young anymore. I mean, bass players like my age, 30 years old, like we grew up, watching you guys, like watching you do your thing. So how does it feel to now know that like you hold a similar place for, it's thousands and thousands of bass players out there.
It's cool and it's flattering in a way that it's hard to describe. Because I understand how I felt about, Cliff Burton, Steve Harris, Billy Sheehan, all these people that I really enjoyed their playing and had such an impact on how I play. Steve DiGiorgio. Again, Steve's my friend, but he's also a really big influence,
Steve is a monster too.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of guys where I look up to them, so much as players, and if someone looks up to me that way, then it's very flattering, and I'm humbled by the support.
And I mean, I don't want to blow smoke up your ass, but I don't know many people who are worthier than you of being in such position, because you've always been the nicest guy in the room and very humble. So it says a lot about you also, that having so much sort of recognition, that you've still kept yourself really sort of grounded and so humble that. And I guess that goes back to what you said, like always stay nice and easy to work with and
thank you. And I've always tried. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I remember, how it was in the beginning and everything, and I won't forget that. And I also know just as a player too, people have said a lot of kind things about how I play, but I know there's plenty of stuff I can still work on. So you never stop improving. You never stop looking to improve yourself. So if someone says they love how I play, I say thank you, and it's still a work in progress.
That's I think for me that's probably one of the most inspiring things of knowing you is how good you are, how much you've accomplished. Yet you're still like, it's really present to you that there's still like a lot to learn, and you still keep like practicing and trying to pick up new tricks and always improving, like constantly.
That's a great thing with music, is there's no limit, there's so many things you can learn, so many different things that different directions you can go with what you're working on too. You can, get into improvising or something, learn more about chords. You can learn more about arranging things, working with odd meters, whatever it is. And then even on another token, you can learn more about, using gear, doing recording, things like that. There's so much to learn to make you a better, more well-rounded musician.
Actually, that's very interesting, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think it's a fairly new thing, especially I think for bass guitar. Guitarists have been using pedals and multi-effects and software for a long time, but I think for us bass players, it's kind of a new thing. I mean, I'm 30 right now, and I started playing 15 years ago, like 16 years ago, and back in the day, the status quo was you didn't need a pedal.
Yeah.
You just go straight to the amp. Like that's what a bass player does. And then maybe 5 years later, when I was 20, now maybe you need a compressor.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I think I've seen this shift happen in the last decade, where now bass players are as experimental as guitarists when it comes to sound, and I think there's a craft to that's goes in parallel with your like musical like executing music. It's very interesting. There are, like, for example, Chris Squire, like he's legend, like one of the greats, without being like the fastest guy, but it's just he was I call them sonic architects. He was able to craft his tone in a way that was just he left his mark in music history just by the way. Of course, he played really well also, but his sound was so different. Then Billy also. Well, Billy had both, right? He was like very technically skilled, but you hear two notes and you know that's Billy Sheehan, even if he's not playing super fast.
Absolutely. Yeah, with Billy's tone, you can really hear it. And I remember looking at, in some of the old magazines, he would deconstruct his rig for the magazine.
All the racks and
man, he put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah.
So it's nice that now there's a little bit of the thought's been done for us, by guys like you, for example. Yeah, we can get a pedal that might have required a whole lot of crazy bi-amping and stuff like that to put together back in the old days.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very interesting too, because, I mean, the way you sound changes the way you play. That's, for me, it's undeniable. And there's kind of like this connection between like the way you play affects the way you sound, but then the feedback loop, the way you sound, might also make you adjust things. And I find that very fascinating. Like sometimes you can have everything the same, just maybe change settings on a pedal, like change the EQ or something.
Yep.
And all of a sudden your attack is different. Maybe the type of note you play is different. The melodies you play are different. That for me is very interesting. I'm still like trying to discover and try to like uncover, insight on how that works. And
I think you're right. Like I play differently immediately if it's from clean to a dirty tone. There's probably something subconscious where you feel like you have to dig in a little more the dirtier the tone is. Sure, so that's why I don't go that dirty. I have my B7K dialed in a way where it works for my right hand. Everybody's going to do that. You're going to dial it in the way that works best for you. If I were playing with a pick, it would probably be a bit more distortion because a pick slices and cuts each note in a way that fingers, being a little bit softer of a surface, are not going to do. So you can get away with more gain and still have each note be really clear.
Precise and
with a pick. So you're going to adjust.
Actually, that question came up a lot. Do you ever play with pick?
I don't. No,
you don't? Okay.
No. I mean, if I'm messing around with, electric guitar, of course, I'm not sitting there trying to do this stuff on a 7-string guitar. But for bass, just fingers. Okay. And before Cannibal Corpse, I'd messed around with the pick a little bit, but I didn't like it. Really, it wasn't my thing. I've always felt like a good connection with the instrument just by playing with fingers. Now, I think a lot of pick bass players are great, and some of my favorite bass players play with picks.
Sure, yeah.
Like D.D. Verney is one of my favorites from Overkill. I think his sound is amazing, and he's just a killer player. So that's somebody who plays with a pick.
That bass was loud too, man. Like for being thrash metal, like you never.
I love it. I'm like,
I always wonder, like did the bass player mix this shit? I got it, guys. I'll mix it.
Get in that control room and take over. Man. We've been quiet long enough.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they have this song called "They're Young," perhaps. Yeah, it has like a super mean. I heard that when my first bass teacher, Rodrigo Garcia, he was all into Metallica and Overkill, and I was more into like the progressive stuff, Symphony X and Dream Theater. Yeah, and he was like, that's all good, but you have to start with the basics. So Metallica, like things from 80s and 90s. And he was the guy who introduced me to Overkill and because I don't think that debate is going on so much anymore, but 20 years ago there was this like finger versus pick debate. It was some of this like dogmatic war that like, if you play with pick, you're not a real bass player. Gladly, I think that's kind of gone now with Meshuggah and Periphery. Kind of like people accepted that you can be, you're not less of a bass player for using a pick.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, there's so many great players who are doing things with a pick it's hard what they're doing.
It's not easy, yeah.
I mean, just because they're not playing with fingers also doesn't mean that they probably can't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot of pick bass players. Like I know for sure Dick from Meshuggah is also a good finger player. I've you know, read articles and stuff, and he's a jazz trained guy in many ways, right? So he's playing with the pick because that's appropriate for Meshuggah, I would assume.
And what he can do with that pick is
and he's a killer pick player.
We saw them. They came here 3 weeks ago. They played Tuska Festival.
Killer! Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, that was the first time I saw them live. Like I saw them rehearse a couple of years ago, which is cool in a really surreal way. Like they're just standing in front of you playing these songs. But to see them live, like when they played Bleed, it was like unreal. And
it's ripping, man.
The precision and the stamina also.
Yeah. We've had the good luck of having done a few shows with them, just festivals and stuff over the years, and I always check them out.
Yeah.
Gojira's bass player, another good one, and that's a band that sounds amazing every single time, and the bass is super clear.
Gojira's great, yeah.
We're going to be playing with them in England at the Bloodstock Festival.
With Gojira?
With Gojira, yeah. They're headlining too, so I can get done with my show and then watch those guys.
That's cool.
You know,
actually, we hung out with them. They played after the day after Meshuggah, so we're hanging out with those guys after, and I wasn't there with Gojira, but a couple of the guys from here were, and then apparently like they're good buddies now. Yeah, they're an amazing band.
Yeah, killer band and another great pick player. Yeah, you know who? I mean, I'm glad that the pick versus fingers thing is kind of going away, because who cares? And it doesn't make these guys, you know, Jason Newsted, David Ellefson, Dee Verney, all these guys are great bass players. They're playing with pick. So what? You know, it sounds great. They're great musicians.
A good musician will play well no matter what what they use. Would you be okay if you move to the? We did a little Q&A on Instagram.
Absolutely.
We don't have time to go. There was like 80 questions or something, and some of them were quite silly actually. So I had to filter out. I'm sure we probably touched on some of the subjects, but can you pass me the laptop, please? I'm not gonna say these handles here because some of these guys have the dirtiest handles ever. So we'll just put them in text in the video, but I'm not gonna say these words.
All right.
Well, you just saw the first handle. That was
that's a good one.
What is your live rig setup? You're currently
current live rig setup. I'll just go through the one on this tour. Well, starting with the bass, I play my signature Spectre basses, 5-string. Got my Duncan signature pickups in those. The preamp is a tone capsule, Darkglass tone capsule, in both of my basses that I use on stage. And from there, I go into a radial bass bone overdrive one, but I don't use the overdrive. I'm basically using that to level out the two different basses that I play during the night.
You have the different volume controls for each bass?
Yeah, the one bass, they're both the same. They should be the same, but I think the tuning or something makes the one at the higher tuning a little louder, so I level that off there so that they don't. Yeah, I've never been able to figure it out why, but the higher tuned ones.
The pickup height is the same also?
Yeah. We tried to keep everything equal, and it's still a little louder. So it could just be maybe the particular piece of wood they used for that bass or something. Who knows what? But
there's a lot of black magic that goes into instrument.
There really is. Yeah. So I've always liked that, to be able to level two basses. It's just a good command center for bass guitar. So from there, it goes into a Seymour Duncan studio bass compressor, and then from there into the B7K. And I have a tuner as well. From the B7K up into an Aguilar DB750. And then that's also, I have an Aguilar 810 cabinet, and that's my stage volume. So anything that you're hearing, if you're right in front of me, is coming out of the Aguilar from that signal chain I just described. The two signals we send to the PA is one from the B7K and one from the radial, which is unaffected. So our sound man's able to blend those two things.
Pretty standard studio setup where you have your clean DI and then some dirt.
Exactly. Yeah, he doesn't want to have to put all the low end on the dirty channel. He can put it all on that one really clean tone, and then have the dirty channel have more teeth to it and more of the higher mids and high end. And
stuff. Makes perfect sense. Yeah. Then next question, actually quite related to this. Are your pickups passive or active?
They're active, active Seymour Duncan pickups. I'm running I run the whole system 18 volt.
Yeah, so you have a lot of headroom.
Yeah, yep. So yeah, that's the tone capsule set up 18 volts. So I would assume that would be, the Duncans are active. It's not really so different from the previous setup I had, but these are tweaked to exactly what I like.
Perfect.
The signature pickups I had.
Can people buy those separately, or do they only come with the Spectre?
No, you can get them separately from Duncan. And in fact, I don't think Spectre has. I mean, this is so new; they just came out last year. I don't think Spectre's got them into the.
It's not a spec on the.
It's not a spec
version.
on my thing yet. Yeah, Duncan and Spectre have yet to coordinate that.
Okay.
So hopefully soon.
Hopefully they'll figure out soon.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. What is your biggest influence for playing bass guitar? I'm reading literally, so if the syntax is a bit weird, it's not
Sure.
my fault.
I mean, there's a bunch. It really is hard to narrow it down to one.
Well, you mentioned quite a few of them already.
Yeah,
so.
Cliff Burton, Steve Harris, Geddy Lee for sure. Even though that's a bit outside the metal genre, but still Geddy Lee is a big influence, tone wise, playing wise. The odd meter stuff.
But actually, there's something very interesting because every time I meet sort of like people who've maybe helped build a style or have been kind of like at the forefront of a particular style, usually their influences are not what you would expect. It's strange. Like if you ask Dick Lee, for example, who are his favorite musicians, he probably wouldn't name any band that's similar to Rush necessarily, or any he might name jazz musicians or something else. So,
well, yeah, and you know what? On that note too, I guess I should mention that a lot of the stuff I practiced, a lot of the practice material that you buy as a bass player is jazz oriented or maybe funk or whatever. So I have tried learning like Steve Bailey, Victor Wooten, their Bass Extremes book. I worked through a lot of that. That's awesome material that came out in the early 90s.
That was mind-blowing too.
Yeah.
Bass Extreme, that
Yeah,
Chick from Korea song.
Yeah, that's an awesome song. Yeah, really fun. I never played it start to finish, but I learned a bunch of the little parts. It's so cool. So a lot of that stuff probably had an impact on how I play, even though it's not, not at all like Cannibal Corpse's music. For sure, trying to learn like the finger funk style. I figured this could apply to metal somehow, learning how to play really complex 16th note patterns. So I tried learning, some Jocko stuff, Rocco Prestia kind of things, all that finger funk kind of stuff. I would get books that had, and watch videos that kind of explained that, and tapping, things like that. There was a Beaver Felton video that I worked through, Super Chops for Bass. That was a really good video back in the day. So
Beaver Felton is OG.
OG really, and it's really great instructional material too. Like he went through all the kind of techniques that were really cutting edge in the late 80s, early 90s, and that helped me a lot to get my, feet wet in some of these different techniques that you don't learn that from a basic teacher most of the time. They're not going to teach you double thumping, at least not in the late 80s. That was pretty uncommon. So yeah, there's a bunch of influences. I can't narrow it down to one, but for sure, yeah, Cliff Burton, Steve Harris, those are really big ones.
Awesome. Any favorite bass line of all time? Is there anything that stands out?
From other bands, you mean? Like
or if it's from you, then
no. I mean, like some people ask, "What's the favorite one that you've ever done?" or whatever. But for other ones, again, it's hard to say. I really like what Geddy Lee does in Free Will. All that cool breakdown part. It's one of the coolest sounding bass things, and of course, Anesthesia by Cliff Burton.
Yeah, that's
one of my favorites. And I love the song "Lost for Words" by Iron Maiden. It's just here. I mean, I love both singers, or actually. I mean, but it's for sure just great to hear that band just kicking ass, instrumentally. I mean, they've done that on a couple songs, but that song in particular, I've always really loved that bass part, just chugging along with that triplet feel.
Wonderful. Any new Conquering Dystopia in the works?
Yes. Yep. Awesome. That's going to be up and running, and so keep an eye out in 2019.
Yes. I'm very excited about that, actually. It's one of my personal favorites. That's awesome news. Do you remember what was the first bass line you learned?
Boy, I think like Rock You Like a Hurricane by Scorpions.
Oh,
and I'm
wow.
not even sure, even as relatively straightforward as that is, I probably didn't even learn that right.
Okay. Any advice to maintain stamina while playing fast?
You know, I think I kind of covered this a little bit earlier, but
Yeah.
you probably don't need to play as hard as you think to get a good tone.
More efficiency, I guess.
Yeah, relax and try and be efficient, and remember that, you know, the movement is really like, don't like, you know, lean into it too much. You can get a lot of speed without losing your relaxation. And in fact, relaxation is probably a key part of it. You know, stay relaxed and
that's a counterintuitive thing, especially when you're playing something fast or difficult. The instinct is to kind of like tense up.
yeah.
But that always ends up hurting your stamina and your precision in a way. So
Yep. If staying relaxed is huge.
do you have any just to elaborate more on this question? Do you have is there anything in particular that you do to sort of reinforce that relaxed state while playing difficult things, or it just comes with practice?
You know, I just kind of try and watch out for key signs that I might be like, you know, if you cut yourself really like gritting your teeth and stuff like that, like, or you might feel a little tension in your shoulder or neck, it's like, well, those aren't really the muscles that are supposed to be playing. It's supposed to be kind of, you know, coming from a relaxed hand movement. So see if you try and make sure you're keeping it to a nice relaxed hand position. If you feel things starting to tense up, then back it off a little, you know.
Perfect. That's actually very useful. Well, actually, this question is a bit redundant. I'm going to ask it anyways, but we covered it. Any recommendations to strengthen the right hand? But you've already kind of said that you're actually giving almost the opposite advice. Like, don't focus so much on hitting. But actually, you have changed this recently, because I remember first time I saw you sort of playing like 101 was, or not first time, but was at NAMM show maybe 5-6 years ago. And I remember being very impressed because NAMM is super loud, like loud all the time. I remember that you grabbed the bass and started playing before we plugged it in, and I could hear you playing. So 5-6 years ago, you were. It was you and Brian Beller. Who played, like, Brian came maybe before, like an hour after you, and he was like, how are you hitting this hard? Like, and
Brian digs in really hard.
Oh man,
too.
yeah,
he's killer. Yeah, you know what? I think, like I said, the strength thing, in hindsight, it's probably not as important as I had even thought. Like, the tone you're getting can be just as good backing it off just a little bit, and then you can have speed for a lot longer.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, running a sprint versus running a marathon or something. If you're sprinting, how long can you go? And the sprint is at full output. You know, that's great for a short period of time. But if you want to be playing fast all night, it would make sense to find that pace.
Yeah, the pace that you can sustain. Which is the same for running. We were talking earlier about that you're really into running and sort of doing this more endurance stuff.
Yeah.
That's key, is finding like the pace that you can maintain, you know.
Yep. A comfortable pace that still has strong attack. You can have strong attack without it being the hardest attack that you're capable of.
Sure. Okay. That's a good clarification. Last question. Sure. Any guilty pleasure pop song?
Oh boy, probably.
Out of all the bass players that every interview, I think this is the one that's.
It's a tough one. I mean, anything would be guilty, and that would be guilty enough to feel guilty about it would be one that you wouldn't want to talk about, like some real bubblegum stuff. You know, there's stuff that I don't.
Any Katy Perry or something like that.
No, you know, I don't listen to the radio unless we talked about before the interview, like if you're in McDonald's and you're stuck hearing something. So I can't really think of anything offhand like a hit. Every now and then I'll hear a song, like some pop song, where I'm surprised that its chord arrangement goes in a certain direction. And that's kind of cool. That doesn't necessarily mean I like the song, but I'm happy to hear that there's some good musicians out there working on these songs, even though it's not my cup of tea by any means. But I can't really think of anything. I listen to some different stuff. Probably like back in the 90s, I remember I really liked the really popular No Doubt album, Tragic Kingdom.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I thought there was a bunch of good stuff on there, and that's not pop, really. I mean, it's pop rock, whatever. I'm not sure what kind of genre that is, but
I'm sort of classifying things like genre is also weird for me. Like metal guys, you guys do this all the time. It's like prog math metal is like you end up like with this like 6-word definition.
Yeah, so many modifiers.
It's fucking metal, man. Like for me, metal can be anywhere from Metallica to Meshuggah, completely different Tool, like everything in between. Yeah, it's all rock and roll at the end for me. So yeah. Don't get people get silly with these definitions sometimes, and they argue about whether a band should be considered. It doesn't make sense, I think so.
So that album was good though. That's got really good bass playing on it, and it's definitely not like what we're doing. So
I would consider no doubt a very satisfactory answer.
Cool.
So you aced it.
Cool, very good.
Okay, well I think this is it for today. You have to sound check in around 20 minutes, so perfect timing.
One thing too, this actually popped into my head right after I answered the question, but when I answered talking about Iron Maiden and how I like the instrumental, I said, I like both singers. I did not mean to diss Blaze Bayley. He's a good singer too. Okay. There was 3 singers, so I didn't forget Blaze, Perfect. I didn't listen to those albums as much, but I don't want to omit him from my answer. That's not cool. So he did a lot of good work with them as well. So.
Fair enough. That's
not leaving anybody out. Bass players get left out enough, so I don't want to leave out a singer.
Yeah, that's true, man. That's true. Well, for playing an instrument that usually gets left out, I think you get your fair amount of dues, and deservedly so. So thank you very much for being here. It's a true pleasure. I always love talking to you on camera, off camera. It's always nice, and thank you much. Thank you very much for coming. And
likewise, it's always a pleasure, and thank you so much for having me. This is great.
I can't wait to see you guys.
Yeah, it's gonna be a hot
tonight.
one.
Yeah, it's super hot.
The heat followed us.
It's Finland, but it's super hot. Well, what's the temperature in Fahrenheit right now? It's like 30 Celsius.
In Fahrenheit, it is 80. So this is the coolest day. Yeah. The hottest day for us was way up north in Oulu, and that was 91. During the day, which to put this in perspective, why we're so surprised by that, Oulu is farther north than Fairbanks, Alaska, so that should help, put it in perspective for some of the people in North America, where this is.
It's like Arctic Circle basically, and
it was close. We would have, if we drove a couple more hours, we would have been in the Arctic Circle. So 91 degrees up there.
Hot as fuck. Who would have thought?
It sure was.
Global warming is true, people. It's not a myth.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, well, Alex, thank you very much again.
Thanks again.
Hope to see you soon. We'll hang out tonight for sure, but thank you very much for doing this, and thank you everyone for the questions, even the silly ones.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you.